Hey everybody, welcome to my channel. My name is Brian. Today's project, behind me is this sad looking 2001 Jeep Grand Cherokee Laredo. It belongs to a friend of my son's. So last summer they told me about some overheating problems. I looked into it, opened the hood, and immediately noticed there was no fan shroud and suggested that and maybe changing the thermostat. So now we're 6-9 months later, whatever, and this is how it showed up at my house, asking if I could fix it. Thermostat gone, not in it. Supposedly it needs a water pump also, and there's no fan shroud evident. So I got towed here on like 3 flat tires. We started it up to move it up in the driveway, and that's when I discovered that they had neglected to hook up the transmission cooler lines in the new radiator, or new used radiator that got put in. They hooked up the lower one, but this one they neglected to, I think because they got it below the sway bar and it wouldn't reach. So I believe, I hope that's the problem in the thread. It's not that the threads are screwed up in here. So I guess we'll get set up and get started by hooking this thing back up, and then we'll tackle this water pump. So that transmission line's back on. As with any job, it's always a good idea to check your parts before you dig into it. Looks like it. So this has a mechanical fan that is driven from the water pump with these big threads right here. And it looks like it's standard right-hand threads, so now we need to find the correct wrench and get that fan off first. I do not have an open-end wrench big enough for that, so I could use the good old adjustable. I took one bolt out of the fan clutch to fan blade assembly, so I can get this down in here. And a lot of times this belt will have enough tension to keep it from spinning, but that is not the case. So I'm holding the pulley to water pump bolt down here with an open end 13mm wrench. Let's see if this will break loose. It did. All right, that was a lot easier than I was expecting. Next, we'll get the serpentine belt out of the way. There's a tensioner here that will accept a 1/2-inch drive ratchet. Remember how that goes, because I'm pretty sure the diagram's long gone. That'll be also a good time to spin some of these idlers. Yeah, that doesn't sound great. Good enough for now, though. See what the belt looks like. Actually, doesn't look too bad. Guess we can go ahead and get this pulley off next. Probably should have loosened these before I took the belt off, because of course they're going to be massively tight. I'm changing this pump anyway, so it won't really hurt if these threads get a little boogered up. This thing looks suspiciously like it's been changed before, and there's the weep hole. I would suspect if it was leaking, you would see some signs of that right there, which I do not, but they said it needed changed. And I already have the part, and it's already this far. We'll go ahead and do that. Hope we're not chasing some other weird problem like a cracked head or something. If you can see it, there's a hose clamp right there that's suspiciously new also. Go ahead and get that out of the way. See if that hose will come off with it pump still attached. Guess we'll find out if there's any coolant left in here in just a second. None came out the hose, so I'm guessing it's completely empty. And all our bolts. Looks like it. So that tensioner is going to be in the way, and I'm sure that's not a 13. 15. Comes with a whole spacer too. Yeah, I don't think that's that old. Scraped off all the old gasket material on the water pump mating surface and for the thermostat. Guess I need to do that next. But first, I will go ahead and get the gasket installed on the water pump itself. Of course, I didn't have any, so I had to go get some. What I had was dried up. I think in this application, this will work fine. You could likely even get away without gasket cement. Most of them from the factory don't have it on there. Went ahead and switched out this pipe that goes to the heater hose, and it's pretty much just 90 degrees to the pump. Put some high tack on there. It just slips in. These bolts all go into blind holes, so you don't need to apply sealer to the bolts. Some applications, or some possibly could go straight into the water jacket, and then you would need to seal those. Next, I'm going to spend some time and clean all this disaster off here and go ahead and get the thermostat in it now. Silicone, paper. This is like a peel and stick gasket here. Give it a little extra stick help though. On both sides. Don't want to forget the reason for all this. A 195 thermostat. Apparently there was none in here before. I don't know if that was trying to mask another problem or what. I guess we'll find out. Thermostat's now on the ground. I found the bolts in the cup holder. seems a little suspicious. This has lock washers on it. Not sure why that's like that, but we'll leave them on there. I think I got it the right way. Either that or I'll have to look back through video. Go ahead and snug these pulley bolts up now that the belt's on. So there's still pieces of the old fan shroud attached to this radiator, or an old fan shroud. So I'm going to sort out hardware for there and look around, because there's little bits and pieces everywhere, to get ready to put the fan shroud in. And then I'll probably, actually I guess right now I can go ahead and start adding, coolant, because everything should be buttoned up. I'm sure this thing's old enough that the green stuff will work fine for it. So as I was working on that, I noticed water dripping on the ground, and it was coming out from the bottom of the thermostat right here. I tightened it down, it still didn't stop. So I suspect that this thermostat housing is cracked or warped or something. And that's what made him think they needed a water pump, because unless you get in there real close, it would look like the water pump was leaking. So I checked a local auto parts store, and lo and behold, they had it on the shelf for like $17. Which leads me to believe that might be a common problem. So we'll get this off and get the new housing on there. Okay, so I spent the last hour screwing around with that thermostat housing. Even with the new one, it still dripped a little bit. So I took it off, used a file, and filed the head completely flat, and cleaned out the groove that the thermostat sits in. Cemented the thermostat with a high tack again into the block, just to hold it, to make sure it wasn't falling down. Gooping that up, letting it dry for a little bit, torquing it to 33 foot-pounds each bolt. And then this freaking hose clamp leaked. So I tightened the hell out of that, and it looks like it finally stopped. Now we can get back to the order of getting the shroud in here. That actually looks like where it belongs. Just going to start these bolts. I need to make sure I can fit the fan in there. I've had them before where you have to put the fan like inside the shroud and then put it all together at once. Let's do that now. Good. Looks like it'll fit. I'm gonna go ahead and put some anti-seize on that. I'm gonna anti-seize those threads in case some Poor sucker ever has to take this apart again. See if I can hold the fan with a wrench. At least hold one of the bolts. Alright, now I'll get the rest of these in there, and I think we're ready to top it off some more and try to run it. So that's all back together. Guess it's time to start it. What I don't know is the overheating. Was it cause or effect? Was it because the radiator was leaking, letting all the coolant out? Was it because that thermostat housing was leaking, letting all the coolant out? Is there something else wrong? Was it because there was no fan shroud? I don't know. Radiator's full. There's some in the tank. Go ahead and start it, and I'm going to need to add transmission fluid because I'm pretty sure I pumped out a couple quarts on the street. And of course the check engine light's on, but we'll get to that in a little bit. Yeah, not even on the stick. It's been running a few minutes. That hose is warm now, so the thermostat's opened. Appear to have any leaks. I've added like 2.5 quarts of ATF. Likely you'll need more. Actually, doesn't sound too bad. Blowing warm air in here, and it's right about where I would guess operating temperature would be. I do have the heater on to try to get all the air bubbles out. So I guess we'll shut it off, let it cool off and suck back in what coolant, and then I guess try to fill some tires up, etc. Maybe go for a ride, see what that check engine light is. So we buttoned it all up yesterday, purged it, took it on a little test drive. One might think we'd be done, but on the test drive, the radiator decided to start leaking, or it probably always leaked and just got enough heat and pressure on it. Then it has a huge leak in the bottom. So now we get to take all this back apart and basically do this all again. I'll show you if there are any highlights. So all that's pretty much out of there. Bolts are out of the radiator, trans lines are off. So it looks as though the evaporator core, it's not the evaporator core, the condenser for the air conditioning is hooked into the radiator. So this piece is going to have to come off. This whole radiator support is going to have to come off. At least that's what it looks like to me. These are Torx T30s. And it has some more T30s down in here that hold these bars for the hood latch. I'm hoping this will just kind of pull out a little bit. And then there's some bolts over on the side. They're T30s and 10s. Should be able to take them loose and this swing out of the way. Then we can lift the condenser up enough to get it out of the hooks in the radiator, which is starting to make me think that the radiator was actually coming out of this vehicle. They realized they couldn't get it out and they gave up. So maybe this one was the bad one the whole time, and they used one in the back that looks like hell was what they're going to put in, but they're getting a new one. You can see the rust line at the bottom where it was pouring out. So there is the new one, old one. Now I need to get hoses switched over, this little piece on the bottom, get all that switched over, and then we'll see if we can jam it in there. So it's down in there, it just barely fits and drops into some pockets, and then the condenser drops into the little slots. I had to take this hose back off and put it on in the car. So now I was going to tackle the transmission cooler lines. This fitting came out with the radiator, but I also noticed this clamp was not even where it belonged, so that was kind of a disaster waiting to happen. So I gotta get this clamp, or this fitting, out of this hose. This one should work fine. So I'll get those out of there next. There's a long bolt back here that holds the radiator to the body. And the UF. And right here is a short one that holds the condenser to the radiator. There's one on each side, 10 millimeter. So the new radiator does not come with these clips. It comes with that and that fitting, but the little clip for the shroud, and of course it's in the car now, so I need to pick these out of here. Anyway, I need to get them out of there and in the radiator to bolt the shroud on. Okay, so there we go. I found some pieces in the back and kind of put the front grill on, but hell, I don't know how it's supposed to attach. And I'm not sure where the wood screws go either. May just leave it like it is. The hood's all bent up right here, and just so it doesn't close right. Not really sure what happened. I don't know if that'll show up. But it's all buckled right there too. So we'll give it a little adjustment to help it close. Looks like it needs a little more. So I've reattached the front end to the best of my ability with what was there. Everything seems as good. Well, everything's good as a 20-year-old Jeep's going to be. So anyway, to recap, water pump, radiator, thermostat housing, thermostat, radiator cap, bunch of transmission fluid, yeah, pretty much a complete cooling system rehab. But now it's on its way, and I'll figure out how to clean up the Superfund site that our street has become. See you on the next one.